Welcome to Source Not Found, a show about the worst versions of your favorite things. Every other week, we explore an IP, franchise, or fandom by way of its sequels, spin-offs, and side projects. Basically anything but the source material. I'm Brandon June, and Sega Genesis does what Brand don't.
And I'm Bill Woodall, and I am a Dreamcast boy in a Master System world.
I'm a Dreamcast boy, too. Just a couple Dreamcast boys here.
Oh, guys, welcome to March Mania, I think is the best way to put it, right? March Mania?
Sure.
We can't call it March
Madness?
I think that's TM.
Merch, like as in merchandise, as a stretch. It also just kind of sounds like the Ermagerd Goosebumps kind of thing.
Ermagerd.
It's Merch Madness.
I don't know if we can call it March Madness without it being a problem. March Mania.
Console Wars.
Sure. There it is. Guys, I'm sorry. I have the hiccups. They may show up every now and again. I'm really trying to get rid of these bastards.
Hiccup Wars.
Hiccup Wars.
Should we start over? Okay. Forge ahead. It's bracket season for kids who don't do sports. Well, you do a little bit of sports. I do zero sports. So it's my kind of bracket season. My kind of madness. So what we got today is we've got your third month of the year craziness style bracket here, but instead of sports teams, we've got video game consoles. We don't have every console. It's not exhaustive, but we've started from our personal era of gaming when we both started, basically, our childhood. So like the NES, so like mid-'80s up through the current day, the present day, and most of the big ones, and a couple of the not so big ones.
And we are not talking about handheld consoles.
No handhelds, just home consoles. And emphasis on the console, like we're not doing any of the, it's not so big in America, but I know definitely in like UK, they had a lot of like the home, like computer video game consoles, like the Spectrum or the Amiga. And I don't have any experience with those. It wasn't so big in the US. I've dabbled with the Commodore 64 in recent years, but aside from that. So just your typical, we're console scrubs. I definitely didn't grow up as a PC gamer. I didn't have a PC really capable of playing just about anything other than like the freeware games until like a couple of years ago. I finally invested in a good PC. I don't know about you.
My PC experience involved Baldur's Gate and E-Bombs World and Newgrounds.
Oh, okay. Definitely Newgrounds was one of those things like when you could get around the safety controls on the school, like the computer lab computers.
Yeah.
But don't have any particular nostalgia for those games. Didn't do a whole lot of gaming on Newgrounds. So since we're console scrubs, let's start off just talking about what was your first console?
I may be wildly mistaken here. I'm pretty certain my first console was the Nintendo Entertainment System. I think my granddad or my cousin had an Atari. But I remember the first...
The 2600?
I believe that's
the wood paneled. Okay.
Yeah. The wildly wood paneled one. But the first system that I owned was the NES. I remember playing Super Mario Brothers. I remember Excite Bike.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first one. What about you?
Yeah, for me it was the Super Nintendo. So I did, growing up, I had some experience with the NES, just neighbors' houses, friends' houses, senior cousins around the holidays, they had Super Mario Brothers 3. I remember really enjoying that.
God, Mario 3 was so good.
Yeah. And that's a lot of people's favorite. Because I don't have the nostalgia, I'm a Super Mario World guy.
That's fair.
I get it. I remember asking for a Game Boy like every year for a birthday and Christmas and being denied by my mother. Like, you're not having video games. No. Those aren't coming in the home. Eventually, she relented and got me like a Tiger handheld. Just those absolute, just dog shit. I don't remember what it was. It was probably X-Men or something. They had the cool like art around the case of it. And then you just actually start playing that thing and it barely functions as a game, That was disappointing. I still asked for the Game Boy after that. I don't remember really asking for a Super Nintendo. I remember wanting a Game Boy, and then it was either Christmas 93 or 94. I'm trying to remember. One of those two. Christmas morning. opening up that Super Nintendo and top Christmas of all time.
Yeah, I bet.
I was a Super Nintendo kid. I mean, it was a thing in the 90s, and it still continues today, like brand loyalty argument among kids about what's better, this or that, right? Fill in the blank. And in those days, it was Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis. So I was a Super Nintendo kid, but I also was kind of envious about the Genesis kids because they had Sonic, they had the Mortal Kombat with the blood. They had a lot of cool stuff over there. So given the opportunity, I would have taken both. But did you have any of that going on when you were a kid?
I did have the SNES. Brand loyalty wise, as soon as Sony dropped the PlayStation, it was basically game, set, match. I don't think we ever had a Sega system in the house.
Mm-hmm.
I remember playing Sonic games at friends' houses and stuff. But it went from SNES to PlayStation, I think, for us.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, I did have the Dreamcast. Bless it.
Oh, man.
Bless it.
Dreamcast, bless it. I'm a devotee of the Church of Sega. I was a late comer. I wasn't, like I said, I was a Nintendo kid growing up. I had the Super Nintendo, then went into the N64. But Dreamcast, man. Dreamcast retroactively made me a Sega kid.
Yeah.
I just, I was willing to trash my whole history with Nintendo for that. But, the final conclusion is video games are just good, y'all. Don't care where you get them.
Yeah, games are great. Play games.
Yeah. More, it's kind of sad the landscape is sort of, it used to be so broad in scope. I mean, these console wars today, we're going to be talking about a lot of devices that came out at the very end of the 80s through the early 90s because it was just chock-a-block full. Yeah.
So many things. But I think more than that, something we have to discuss is the fact that none of them were the same, really. Guys, we're doing, instead of your normal March Mania bracket, we are doing a bracket to figure out which console is the aesthetically most pleasing or best. Controller and console together, not talking about graphics or gameplay or anything like that, because obviously if that was the case, we'd be looking at things like, this would be
a 30-hour podcast.
Well, not to mention, we would be looking at things like the PlayStation 5, just graphics-wise.
Right. How do you really compare the 3DO or the Jaguar against, right?
Yeah, how am I going to compare the fucking Jaguar to the Xbox S? So we're looking at how the consoles were designed aesthetically.
Yes.
How they feel to play in the hands.
Yeah. Because that kind of thing transcends time, really. We're going to argue it. I'm going to argue it that a lot of consoles from the very beginning of the 90s look and feel better than some of the current options, or at least the options available in recent years.
Agreed.
So while we're not talking about games or really the gaming experience on these so much, we have decided that given a tie where one of us comes down on one console and the other one of us is arguing for the other, we'll bring in some games. We'll bring in the sort of level of innovation that each console displayed, maybe the general experience, and we'll talk about some other factors in the hopes that will help break the tie if we are on either side of
I think that's 100% fair.
Yeah, but we're gonna have to limit ourselves because if we get to the Dreamcast and you let me go, this will be the 30-hour podcast,
and we can't play that game.
You have to stop me. Put your foot down. But how are you gonna put your foot down? We're both Dreamcasters. Anyway, I'm already talking Dreamcast. We're not even there yet.
We're not even there yet. So we're going to start off, I think, pretty easily.
We'll see.
We are going the Atari Jaguar versus the OG Sony PlayStation. Brandon, what you got?
So, Atari Jaguar, a console, maybe a lot of us aren't even so familiar with it. I'm not. I never really played one. It came out November 23rd, 1993. And, yeah, it didn't really last that long. So, I don't know. Do you have any experience with this console?
I don't. I hate its controller so much.
Yeah. Should we start there?
I honestly, so here's my thing.
Mm-hmm.
I am willing to give some time to us talking about the Jaguar because I feel like the PlayStation is going forward. Otherwise, I wouldn't want to talk about it too much.
I have to take myself out of present day Brandon, and put myself back into the shoes, the Velcro light up shoes of, 7-year-old me. The jaded American youth who was looking for attitude, cool attitude. No parents. Parents not allowed. And on that metric, I look at the Jaguar a little differently aesthetically, but as an adult, I absolutely hate it. It is like, it's a black console. It's often been referred to as a toilet seat. And once you read that description or hear that description, you can't not see it. It does look like a toilet seat with a sort of ring around the exterior. And then it curves down on the interior where the cartridge slot is. It's
bad. It's bad.
It's got this one bulbous bright red STD sore looking thing on the front as a power button with the Jaguar logo emblazoned on the side. The Jaguar logo is kind of cool, but I don't like it on the console. It is ugly.
I feel like we're giving it way too much time for what it deserves. All we have to say is the fact that it is a gross ass black, heavily complicated controller system, and one of its launch games was Trevor McFur in the Crescent Galaxy. And you know what? I'm out.
You don't need to talk games on this one because, it's not going for it. I just can't get over the fact this thing looks like a toilet seat. It's like a toilet seat because also with the power button and the seams on either side of it, it kind of looks like the face of a teddy bear with the button nose. So it's like if you went into a Build-A-Bear, it's like, give me a
toilet bear.
Toilet bear, toilet seat with the velveteen fur. And then I'm going sailor outfit and herpes because, it's got 3 more of those bright red fucking STD sores as buttons on the controller, which if it were just the top half of the controller, fine.
That's fine.
It's got this keypad stuck on the bottom.
It's
looks
got
like one of those
BlackBerry downstairs with a Sega Genesis upstairs.
Yeah, the numerical keypad, it kind of reminds me of those Play cell phones you would get we would get in the 90s, the big blocky ones. It's a mess. It's ugly. I don't know what we could pair this up against that it would beat, really.
All right, so PlayStation moves forward.
PlayStation moves forward.
And I feel like this is fair. We talk about what loses.
Sure. So we don't rehash the same conversation.
Yeah. So next we got Master System versus Wii U.
Now this one.
I have very strong opinions about this one, actually.
Yeah, we just said talk about the one that loses. I don't know which one of these is going to lose, actually.
I think the Master System is a worse system.
Okay. Tell me why.
Okay, the Wii U was the basis for what the Switch became.
Yeah, but I think we got to take that out of the equation, right? We're talking about the aesthetics of the experience gaming on this console. How does it look on your shelf? How does the controller feel in your hands? We're basically limiting it to that, right?
Yeah, we are.
So what would you rather have on your entertainment center?
The Master System looks like the last Starfighter reject. There's
Yes. Oh, you mean that as a bad thing?
Oh, yeah. Well, so the Wii U, I kind of like looking at.
I like looking at both of these. Let's talk about Master System real quick. I love the look of the Master System. It's got that it's got the 80s vibes more than just about any other console, It's got a cyberpunk look
If someone
to it.
said, what does a retro gaming system look like? It looks like the Master System.
It's black, it's angular, it's got
they had a white one too.
The font is great.
They had a white one too.
Yeah, and the Japanese one looks a little differently. The Mark III, I think it's called. The thing that really does it for me is you've got all these great angles and buttons and a very mechanical analog look and feel to it. And then right below the cartridge input slot, you've got this bold red graphical technical diagram that shows the connections. It's got the power light on, and then it shows the connections between the controllers and the TV system. And then you've got the card reader just below that. That is super cool. I love the look of that. Now, that said, among the buttons you're seeing on this thing is the pause button. They have the pause button right next to the cartridge input on the console. There is no pause button on the Master System controller.
Which sucks.
Yeah, you got to knock it. That's serious loss of points there. That is, I don't know. That is a baffling design choice. Like, if you're nice and cozy on your couch, you got to get up off the sofa and race to the console below the TV and hit that pause button. Keeping it, like, taking your eyes off the screen. I don't know. I'm not all about that. So it's losing something there. But I really like how this system looks. And the controller, just talk about that real quick. It's basically what you're familiar with if you've seen the NES controller.
Yeah, it's an NES controller. It's a D-pad with 2 buttons.
Yeah, it's missing, like I said, the pause but functionally about the same. So moving from that to the Wii U, this is another one I just have nothing but good things to say about the Wii U. This console came out. So the Master System was, just to put a date on these, like that's September 1986, or I'm using the US release dates.
Right.
Wii U, November 18th, 2012. I actually got this console not long after it came out, but I was student teaching at the time, so I didn't get to play it a whole lot, but I did play back through Wind Waker, which is one of my favorite Zeldas, maybe my favorite, which I hadn't played since the GameCube. 100% it again. I could just say the experience of playing that game again on the Wii U was so good because of the gamepad.
Yep.
This gamepad, I love the Wii U gamepad. My hot take is it's better. I prefer holding that to a Switch any day. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but it's bulky, it's weighty. It's got the form factor is really nice because on the back, it's got the curvature for your hands. That's my big problem with the Switch. We're going to get to that, but I hate holding the Switch. It's just like flat nothing. It's a washboard. This has got something to it. It's got something for me to. It's got some love handles on it, something to dig into, grab onto.
Sure, yeah, it's got curves.
And you've got that screen there, that was very cool. Playing I'm not supposed to talk about the games. It was so good. Wind Waker on your TV screen, and then you just look down, and like your menu's already there for you. You don't have to pause. You always got your inventory ready to go, right in your hands. Very cool. Love that gamepad. The console itself it's small. And there's nothing really to say about it. It's like a small, kind of nondescript, sleek.
I feel like
rounded.
the handheld bit is part of the console in this case.
Yeah, for sure. And there's more to talk about with the Wii U gamepad than there is with the console. The console is sort of like just
there. I
don't know. It's got Wii vibes to it, but it's just way smaller, sleeker, and it just, it kind of tucked that one away. You're not even going to notice it on the shelf there.
So I have an opinion leaning toward Wii U. So I've got to hear what you've got.
All right. I love the Master System console design. I would rather have that on my shelf any day. It just looks super cool. But then I would go Wii U gamepad over that. So, man, how do we decide?
I'm going to give you this.
Yeah.
The launch title list for the Wii U is stupid good.
Okay.
If you can provide something from the Master System that is somewhere along the lines of like New Super Mario Bros. U or Mass Effect 3 Special Edition, Darksiders 2, Batman Arkham City, Scribblenauts Unlimited. I'm
hearing a lot of ports, though, of games you could have gotten elsewhere and would be better suited playing elsewhere,
New Super Mario Bros. U you couldn't have done.
Well, you got that one. That's true. I see your Mario, and I raise you 3D glasses that you could have worn playing your Master System. I don't know. I got to go Master. How do we decide this? Do we flip a coin? Because Master System had some major hits, too, in terms of games.
But were they launch games?
So we're just limited to launch games?
That's what we agreed upon. Okay, here it is. I'm giving it to the Master System because the Master System was the father of the Game Gear.
That's true. A Game Gear is basically a Master System in your hands. Oh, here's another good point. Did I say this? You can use the Sega Genesis controller in the Master System.
You did not say that, but we will.
There we go.
We will get rid of the Wii U and move the Master System on.
Sorry, Wii U. You didn't last very long on our bracket, but it's sort of fitting because you didn't last very long in reality.
And here's one that's going to be pretty quick, I think. PlayStation 3 versus Nintendo 64.
Is this quick?
It should be.
All right, so PS3, November 17th, 2006 versus the N64, September 29th, 1996. Now, I have to remove myself from the nostalgia and the joy of receiving this console, just a couple months later for Christmas. Maybe second best Christmas ever. First one being Super Nintendo. But man, getting that N64, ooh, that might take it. All right, N64. This is, I think, the friendliest console design in existence.
Agreed. PlayStation 3 cannot compete with the N64 in this case.
It just screams, this is a family-friendly, entertainment, joyful experience. We've got the nice rounded curves. It seems to be smiling at you. It's got the 4 controller ports ready to go, just telling you, hey, bring your friends over. We're playing GoldenEye. We're playing Mario Kart. All you need is to bring a controller.
Not to mention the fact that the controller itself is
dog shit.
Dog shit, but also offered different ways to hold it that made everybody play differently.
How did you hold your N64 controller?
Left hand in the center thing with the thumb on the joystick.
Yeah.
Right hand ready to go on all of the buttons.
Interesting. Okay, and this is the correct way to play one.
Okay, cool.
I think, isn't? That was kind of a question, but I've seen people...
Honestly, I don't know. I've seen some people play weird fucking ways, dude.
Well, because I didn't hold it that way. I held because it's got I think everyone probably remembers, but for those who don't, the N64 controller, like if you were to just look at the top half of it, it's sort of laid out, not too dissimilar from previous incarnations. You get the D-pad, you got a start button in the middle, you've got 6 buttons on the right side, you got the 4 that you would be familiar with from SNES, and then 2 others, right? They're different sizes, right? But just general layout of buttons. But then below the start button in the center, you got the analog joystick. And then it's just a tripod or like a trident of sorts.
Sure.
With these 3 wings that descend from the bottom. I held the leftmost and would stretch my thumb across to the analog stick in the middle. I didn't hold the center one.
You're a broken man. You're broken inside.
Okay, a lot of my opinions on any number of things going forward, this is why I also like handhelds, I don't even know, just like fuck all the brackets, I hate it all, because I don't like tiny stuff. My hands, I have kind of large hands, and tiny shit pisses me off.
I'm just trying to figure out, like, what would be more comfortable, like...
It gave me the stability. I'm holding it on either end, so it's sturdy in my hands. It felt good, and then just a stretcher. For me, it wasn't a long stretch to get to the center joystick.
I would like to reiterate to the listeners that I played Castlevania 64 with the original N64 controller in this way, holding center and rightmost grips and going to town.
I tried it after I saw someone do it for the first time. Like, is this how you're supposed to do it? And then I don't know. I started seeing it more and more once I paid attention.
And then suddenly your hand fell off. You broke. Everything just kind of rotted and fell away.
It felt like trying to brush your teeth with your left hand, or like for me, because I'm right-handed, or your non-dominant hand. It's just like, you can do it, but it's kind of like wobbly and you're a little unsure of yourself, like a newly born foal, just like, dropping out of the mama
Bambi walking on the
like,
ice. Yeah.
Bam, yeah, no. And also, like, to be on the left side there, I'm ready to go on the D-pad, which I can't even tell you how many times I used that D-pad on the N64. Can't tell you because I don't remember any, but if I needed to, it was there. I don't know. Anyway, tangent. Hate the controller. They don't hold up over the years. They were janky as fuck, like, pretty soon after launch, and so that going against the PS3. PS3 is sleek, especially that launch PS3. It's, that's when you got to like be careful of, because like that shiny finish, right? That's gonna scratch.
Yeah.
But to see it in almost like intended gleaming glory with the Spider-Man movie font emblazoned across the top, it's nice. It is. It looks like the sort of next generation gaming / multimedia device
that it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And then the controller, I'm going to argue throughout this bracket, anytime it comes up, that the PlayStation controller is the best designed controller in each era that it presents itself.
Yep.
But, well, no, actually, I'm about to undercut that. Okay, because of this one. Maybe hot take, I don't know. The PS1 controller is better than the PS2 and the PS3. We saw degradation over the next 2 generations, and it finally ticked back up with PS4. I've got all 3 consoles sitting next to me. Before we got on started our conversation today, I held each one in my hands just to remind myself. The PS1 controller, the DualShock, the original DualShock, does feel better to me than the PS2 and the PS3. Something about like the plastic they changed to. They're lighter. They kind of feel a little jankier, a little less stable, less substantial. That PS1 controller is nice. It's thick, sturdy plastic. It feels good. Holds up. And the rubber grips are really nice on the analog sticks. So PS3, I think, is the worst feeling out of those 3 generations. Feels like hot garbage after holding the other 2. So that has to be said. In terms of like controller layout, I think it's one of the best. I prefer it. I know the Xbox is, I go back and forth. Xbox is also very nice.
Okay, so we go with PlayStation 3.
Yeah, I think I gotta go PS3.
All right. Next up, we've got 3DO versus Xbox Series X/S.
Okay, so 3DO, another one that didn't really make many inroads anywhere, really, in terms of like Western markets or here in Japan.
Yeah, it did not do well.
October 4th of 1993. It was like a big step up, right? The real 3D, and the FMV games, and, it was like sort of next gen and was able to pull off some stuff that consoles at the time could not. I mean, you just think like what else is out there in 93, but
I don't know. The console itself looks like a printer or a scanner.
It looks like a Panasonic media product, right? It looks like something that, we're a company that's putting out electronics. This is another electronic for your shelf full of electronics. It doesn't really scream anything. It doesn't scream video game console at all.
We're talking aesthetics today. We're talking things that make you comfortable. And this just takes things that people think may make you comfortable and put it together into a package that is just awkward.
It is kind of awkward. It's got like these sort of 4 almost columns. They're like protrusions at the 4 corners. They're like these kind of bulbous rounded protrusions that kind of look like table legs. It looks like a little table. It's kind of cute. Looks like a little, I don't know, like coffee table, like inside table.
Sure, it's cute, but it's still garbage.
It's cute garbage.
The controller is damn near an exact replica of a Genesis controller.
It's very similar. It's not trying anything fancy or new. Just stock shit. The whole thing is just stock shit.
I don't like the Xbox Series X/S, but at least it did something different. I can't let the 3DO pass, on my opinion.
I agree. The thing with the 3DO is like, it's not sleek enough to look like the sort of nondescript entertainment product that it wants to be. It's still kind of like janky, like those gray buttons popping out. They look sloppy. The controller's not great. I have a neighbor with 3DO, so I have like held one up, in person, and nothing feels great. But then there's like, it doesn't try anything, right? There's nothing definitive or noteworthy about it. It's just too generic. Whereas like, I don't know, the same thing with really the Xbox Series X. I mean, to start there, but the thing is like that, I guess, is pretty sleek. I hate the Series S. Let's knock that one out. That's easy. Oh my God. What? Who had the idea to have this like white box with this big black? It looks like a badly designed speaker.
We're not there yet.
It's a mess.
We're talking about what we're knocking out.
Well, I was just trying to like decide, but right. I guess if we don't, yeah, it's going to be Xbox. Okay. 3DO is not making it.
3DO can't make it. It's just a bad design. It's just so, please, I'll make anything to make the consumer happy.
Please buy us for things other than video games, dear consumer.
Yeah, please buy more Panasonic products. Thank you.
We can do other things too.
Next, we're looking at the PC Engine, which I did not know was also the TurboGrafx.
Oh, yeah. I suggested that, and I tend to refer to it as a PC Engine, but right. I should be calling it TurboGrafx 16.
Yeah, TurboGrafx versus the PlayStation 5. Okay.
I think we both know it's going to be the PS5, right?
It for me, definitely.
Yeah, I would argue that's the PS5 controller is the best controller ever made.
The PlayStation 5 controller is the most comfortable controller I've ever played with.
It's not fair. It really isn't. So just to give, because I love the PC Engine, I never had any experience with a TurboGrafx 16. I only got into the PC Engine after coming to Japan because it's got a much stronger presence here, and I started seeing it in a lot of like the retro game shops I would go to, and I've gotten really into it in recent years. It is awesome. And if we were judging it, it's going to lose regardless, but the Japanese design is much nicer. The TurboGrafx 16, it's got that sort of like, we're trying to grab the attention of a jaded American youth very quickly. And,
I agree 100%.
Well, I was about to say mid 90s. Actually, this came out 1989, August 29th, 89 for the TurboGrafx 16.
It was before its time.
It was. It was able to pull off graphical feats that the competitors could not do. But it just, to me, it looks like a cheap toy. It really does at the end of the day. Like,
yep, I agree.
It looks flimsy. It looks like the plastic isn't well made. It's got one controller port, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I love the PC Engine controller. It's basically the NES controller. It's just a little rounder, a little nicer. It feels a little better to hold. But the American pad, it's got this like face label on top that, again, it's kind of like giving a little bit of attitude, a little bit of sleekness. But I like the understated, like leaning into the sort of 80s vibes of the original PC Engine. I like the look of the PC Engine, the original. There are like other additions too, like the Duo, because eventually you got like CD functionality, CD games. So there are other versions, but none of them come close to toppling the PS5. So,
all right.
PC Engine. Just real quick, anyone listening, check it out. I don't know if they're widely available. I think they might be because it's not such a popular console. The TurboGrafx 16 or PC Engine Mini. Holy shit. I think maybe one of the best mini consoles out there. And you can get both the TurboGrafx games and the PC Engine games. It's got like 50 something on there. You can switch back and forth to either console. The menus and everything change to align with whatever console you're getting into. It's got games from the CD era, and just like a good selection of shooters and RPGs, and it's awesome. Check it out.
All right. So PlayStation 5 moves forward, sadly, for the TurboGrafx 16. Next, we're moving to the NES versus the Xbox 360.
Oof.
I have opinions.
All right, you can. I've been talking a lot. Hit me.
The Xbox 360 took everything the Xbox did wrong and made it better.
Aesthetically, you mean?
Yes.
Okay.
Both how the console is built as well as the feel of the controller.
Mm.
I believe it's one of the first times that moderate haptics were used with joysticks.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong about that. Come at me if that's the case. But the console was relatively quiet, was pretty to look at,
mm-hmm.
and the controller was comfortable to hold, unlike the original Xbox. I am hard pressed not to go Xbox 360 over NES.
Yeah, that controller is very good. I mean, Xbox has just refined it. That's one, like the PlayStation, it was kind of doing the same thing for a few generations there. And then, in my opinion, getting a little bit worse each time until PS4. And even PS4 and 5, it's like the same general
concept.
Like, yeah. It's a little sleeker. It feels a little bit better. Like, yeah, they brought in like new functionality. They brought in the touchpad. So there's that. I don't know. Xbox is one you can really see every generation them refining that layout to get it just right. So the controller's great. I love the console, the Elite one, I want to say, like with the matte black finish.
Yeah.
The Elite 360. Oh man, that is a sexy console. It's bulky, it's heavy, and it's got a massive power supply it requires, but it's nice.
The curve to it takes the it takes the cubism away from all of the previous consoles and is like, hey, what happens if we make things rounded? Just prettier.
I mean, similar to the PS3, where it's like, we want a piece of hardware and we want to communicate immediately that it's not just for games, it's for a multimedia experience. Get on the internet with this bad boy, play your HD DVDs or your Blu-rays, you know?
Yeah.
But we're not going the nondescript. It's not the Panasonic route, you know? It's not the make it look like nothing. They have personality. They have the roundedness. They're they're friendly, they're enjoyable to touch and hold, and they look great. So the exact converse of that would be the NES,
which is just square upon square upon square. I'm sorry, the NES is not aesthetically pleasing.
See, now, okay, I disagree, actually. I love it. I love the way it looks, but this is my sort of Master System take, where I like something that communicates the era in which it was made and leans into those aesthetics, and this does. It really does. But it doesn't look like the Master System. Like I said, you could put it in like the background in like a cyberpunk film or something, and it would just like look good in there on the rack. This one would not, but I like the 80s vibes. I do. The controller, it's easy to say now, like, it's like uncomfortable to hold. It's square, it's angular, doesn't feel great, but it was like very revolutionary,
Yeah, but it sucked to hold.
We have to remember that.
And I can't. Yeah. I can't let that pass.
Yeah. And it's like, Xbox 360, they do have the red ring of death, but then NES, I mean, especially the US one, this is one where, man, the Japanese one looks totally different. Again, even more so than the PC Engine versus the TurboGrafx. The Japanese design is very weird, and they have like the controllers tethered to the console, which as bad, if not worse, than putting the pause button on that console in the Sega style. But man, the connection with those pins, the fact that like when I grew up, not far removed from this console, and people were always like blowing into their cartridges and like trying to pop it back in to see if it'll work this time. Sort of like that, not placebo effect, but like, we're not really blowing dust. This cartridge is not dusty. That's not the issue. It's like the connection. You really just like fiddling with it and changing how you slid it in each time, and maybe this time it'll work. But the fact that was even happening back then, like very faulty connectors, it's got to go. Xbox it is.
All right. We're looking at PlayStation 4 versus Atari 7800. I mean, as much as I hate to say it, for me, it's got to be PlayStation again. There's nothing about the Atari 7800 that I find intriguing.
I guess one note I want to make, because it might seem like, well, how do you pit these current gen or recent gen consoles against something from so long ago? But if this were the 2600, I would choose that over the PS4 in a heartbeat.
Yeah, agreed.
Again, it's just me loving those vibes, like the wood paneling. Oh man, I love the look of the Atari 2600. The 7800, and just the reason we started off here is we were trying to keep it from, I don't think I said the dates in the last one, but like NES was 85, 7800 was 86.
Yeah, we're all trying to stay in the same sort of area.
We just sort of started it there and moved forward, because that's what we have personal experience with mostly. For both of us, like, we didn't grow up playing, like, I've never played a Magnavox Odyssey, or the Intellivision, and we had to cap it somewhere, or else the bracket was just getting out of control. So we just decided 85 forward. So that's why we went 7800. I do like this console, though. I really like the European variant, actually, as this nice, like, sort of spectrum, like rainbow bar across the bottom of the logo.
That's just, for me, that's just a sticker. Like,
yeah, but I mean, that's part of the console aesthetic.
Anyone can do that. Like,
yeah, it's got that sort of early Apple font or Apple logo that was doing the same thing, which I like that too. I like the vibes.
But it did take away the controller. Like the North American controller had the joystick, which I preferred to the D-pad that the European had.
I think for either one, like, to look at this in 1986 and then to look across the way and see the NES, like, there's just no comparison.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
I don't know. Yeah, Atari's, it's just another one. It's like, it's sort of nondescript. It's like the Wii U, really. It's round and small and kind of would fit in somewhere easily and out of the way, but it doesn't really make a big impression. So it's gotta
all right. Last one of round one. We've got the Switch versus the Xbox One. Switch for me. There's no doubt in my mind. The Xbox One is cute. That's fine. It's a good console. It has a decent controller. But the Switch is fucking game changing with all of the shit it does.
Okay. If we talk about the ability to take it on the go and immediately just pop it in the dock, play on your TV, pop off the Joy-Cons, play with friends. There's no rival to what it allows for types of play and ease of play.
But I mean,
friends or by
isn't
yourself,
that
right?
how it is as a console?
Yeah, I just mean like I was going to follow that up with, but in all those iterations, it feels bad to play.
Fair.
I don't like play. I don't hate on Nintendo. I have a Switch. I love it. I take it on the go sometimes. It's great to bring it home and then just like immediately play on the TV. There's nothing like it. But man, it just feels bad. Like I was saying before when the Wii U gamepad came up, it's a flat washboard. It feels bad in my hands. Playing on those little bitty Joy-Cons, I can't imagine doing that ever for any length of time. Impossible. Like I said, I hate tiny stuff, and it's just, that's about as bad as it gets. Even the Pro controller feels bad. It's like a worse version of the other like PlayStation and Xbox controllers on the market.
But do you think the Xbox One with its just black or white rectangle is a better looking console?
Well, so I was starting with controller. I was trying to like break this down because I wasn't really sure at first. Controller-wise, I go Xbox. I do. Because while the Switch can be played in all these variety of ways, the experience of play, like if I were able to play, not even in terms of like graphical capabilities, just like say all things being even, the game is exactly the same on the Switch and the Xbox. I would play it on the Xbox just for the controller. The experience would be better there.
Okay.
But yeah, that said, talking about nondescript sort of nothing console designs, I think the Xbox One is up there with like the 3DO of just like there's nothing to this, really. It is like a less interesting version of the Xbox 360. It is a downgrade, right? Visually.
That's what I was trying to say, is that the Xbox One is a downgrade from the 360, which I feel like it was a mistake on their part. Like they went from like a nice curved system that looks nice. Like you could put that on a shelf and not be like, please excuse my fucking gaming system, to something that's just a black fucking rectangle. Like there's nothing to it. And it doesn't even look like of the time aesthetically pleasing. Like the Master System can be considered that way.
Right. I mean, you might say that's of the time just because like in this era, we were trying to like, that's part of the vibes, right? Trying to make stuff more mass market appeal, sort of like sand down the rough edges or whatever on any number of things to make it appeal to a wide audience in terms of like even game design, right?
Right.
Which I don't like as a trend, but man, a bad name for a bad console design. Xbox One, like we didn't really know where to go from 360 in terms of naming this thing, and we didn't really know where to go in terms of designing it. If you took the Xbox logo off it, it could be anything, really. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess we got to go Switch. Okay, so we got through our first round. Now, this one's going to probably take just as long because we had a couple of buys. It's got Dreamcast versus PlayStation Original. It's Dreamcast. Ooh, yeah.
No, we don't even have to talk about PlayStation Original. It's a nice gray square who had a good controller.
Yeah, I mean, it's I do want to say it's generic, but for some reason, I don't know why, because it's the most generic ass color, the gray. There's not really much of anything, but it does feel, it's got something in its form factor that does feel kind of friendly about it and nicer than some of the more generic consoles.
It was the circle in the center. Like it was.
That might have been it.
That was nice.
Yeah, and an all-time great logo, and also the redesign. Got to shout out the redesign, just called PS1.
Yeah, with the new dolls, with the new DualShocks. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, and you could pop the screen on the back. That was cool, but Dreamcast, nothing. It's hard to beat Dreamcast for us. So
moving to the next one, we've got Master System versus the original Xbox. Now, this is going to be one that I'm going to take the lead on. The original Xbox, despite all of the things that people love about it, that original controller was the size of a goddamn grizzly bear. Like there is
the Duke. There
is no reason to have a controller that sized unless you have Brandon June sized hands, and not everyone does.
The first time I went to a friend's house to play Halo, in like 2001 or whatever it was, and held that thing in my hands, there was a moment of revelation where it's like, oh my God, this is like what I would wish my Dreamcast felt like, but it's just everything about it is better.
Dude, when we played Halo 2 on the Xbox One, I was like, oh, good, I can play this game now because the controller fits my fucking hands.
I love that, Duke, but
I can't. I love the system. I think it did some really, really cool things, like the PlayStation, like the OG PlayStation. I thought it did some really, really cool things with design and aesthetics. But man, they fucked about with that controller and made it for people like Andre the Giant or Brandon June. And I am not that person, and I don't know many people who are.
It's funny to have like the exact opposite take on this one, because I love the controller, but I hate the console design.
The console's absolute dog shit. But they tried to do something different.
Ostentatious X with that's like another like, I mean, it is vibes. That's 2001 vibes. Where it's like, we're cool, we're here, we're Microsoft. Like, move out of the way, Sega and Sony. Like, fuck off, Nintendo. We're gonna just overtake your living room.
The original Xbox console looks like something from a late 90s hackers movie that was going to give a virus to a computer. Like, it looks like a dangerous device. It's
where the evil AI is stored.
That's where the evil AI is stored. And
the master system is what's hooked on the protagonist's like backpack.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
The old reliable whatever like weaponry that we're gonna combat the AI with. All right, so
that there we go. Next we've got Super Nintendo Entertainment System versus the PlayStation 3.
Okay,
this one's a little rough. So I'll give my quick rundown.
Sure.
I am a Sony crony till I die. I love some PlayStation, everything they do. The SNES is a goddamn masterpiece.
In terms of console design?
Controller design as well.
We got a lot of like, I get it. I'm doing the same thing. It's like the mission creep or whatever. It's like, oh, you want to talk about everything else, but like...
No, yeah, the console is ugly as shit.
It's awful. It's so awful. I almost wanted to make could we do a carve out here and this time talk about the Japanese one, because the Japanese one's really nice. I love the Japanese Super Nintendo design. It's understated, it's rounded, it's elegant. It's got like the Super Nintendo one turned the nice rounded simplicity of the Super Famicom into like this big boxy, bulky, purple switched, janky ass mess.
I like the purple switches.
I do not, and they feel bad.
They do feel
everything
bad.
Feels bad. Everything feels loose.
Okay, I will say this. Even with all of that, I was still going to choose the PlayStation 3.
See, I would choose the Super Famicom over the PS3. I just love it's.
But
just,
we're not talking about the Super Famicom.
Oh yeah, I know. But just quick shout out. It's a lovely looking piece of. It's like it's got the NES.
Okay, you know what?
Like it looks like.
Let's fucking change it. We're going Super Famicom. SNES is out. Really? We're going Super Famicom for this round.
I wanted to make it a fair fight. You know, this is a fair fight. Like Super Nintendo. Now, the one thing I will say on the Super Nintendo is I like the purple on the controller buttons as opposed to like the really like brightly candy cut like M&M buttons
RBG
on the Super Famicom.
Yeah. The RBGY controller, yeah.
Yeah. You got the understated controller for the US and like the very bright one for the Japanese market, but then the console is like the inverse kind of.
Okay, so we're going to say we're doing Super Famicom moving forward. Because it is the SNES.
I hadn't really decided, but yeah, I think I do like it more than the PS3 for sure. It's got the vibes.
All right.
It's all vibes for me.
Super Famicom moves forward. Next, we've got, this is going to be a quick one. We can move through it real fast. Xbox S/S versus Sega Genesis. It's Genesis.
Well, okay, but the one thing I got to say is if we have to judge the X and the S, we have to take it both.
We do.
Then we do have to consider all iterations of the Genesis, which original Genesis, oh man, it's like the Master System all over again. It's got it's got switches. It's got switches on the console. I love it.
For me, the Sega Genesis is hard to fucking beat. It is a very, like, they knew exactly what the fuck they were doing to make a system of its time.
It looks like a next gen from the Master System. It's got things I like about that, you know, in terms of the original Genesis.
Even the Model 2 with its like kind of raised ovoid thing, like it looks like a oh my god, what are they called? They're in Aliens. It looks like a xenomorph.
Oh, I see that. Yeah.
Like this is a system.
Sleek as hell.
This is a system you do not fuck with.
You don't.
Like it is.
It does what Nintendo don't.
It does what Nintendo don't. It is a
I will say,
good-looking system.
And unless you're talking Model 3, which Model 3 is...
I've never seen
nasty.
Model 3. It is not available on the interwebs so far.
Oh, it is. Model 3 is... It's got like the kind of like Jaguar thing going for it. Like in terms of like the way the sort of 3 is like slashed across the front in like this font that I don't know, but it's like smaller. It's worse in every way. It just looks bad.
Yeah, let's not talk about that.
No. I just want to know: do you go original Genesis model or do you do Model 2? What's your choice?
I had a Model 2.
Okay,
that's what I would recognize, and I always thought it looked like a fucking xenomorph.
It looks so cool next to like, that's the one thing, like arguing as kids, if we're going back to like brand loyalty at the time, like you could not argue that your ugly duckling purple switched Super Nintendo looked cooler than the Sega Genesis. The Sega Genesis was like, yeah, come over here for your Mortal Kombat, and we got the blood, and we got the sports, we got the cool shit. We got the shit that will make you, we'll make you hard. We will. All right, so Genesis, I'm assuming, right? The X and the S, like, they have a big there's nothing to it.
There's a big fan. We can move past it.
X is like nothing. S is like something, and the something is bad. It looks bad. No matter.
The regular Wii versus the PS5. I'm sorry, the PS5 has my favorite controller I've ever played a game with. I know that the console is big. I like its wings. I like the curvature on it. The controller itself is my favorite controller I've ever played the game with. The haptics are good. Yeah. The vibration, the fact that I just finished Spider-Man 2 recently, and there are sounds that will come through the controller and basically punch you in the face that are just so fucking good. And I know that's like, that maybe in this case game specific, but the fact that they were able to work some of that shit in, and how the touchscreen on the controller functions with the console.
Touchpad?
Yeah, the touchpad on the controller with the console itself. Mm-hmm. It's fucking beautiful. Okay.
Earmuffs, 10-second, mild spoilers. Spider-Man 2. And go. Fuck me, when you put on, like, when you go full Surge in the symbiote suit, the way it just breathes at you. It reminds me of when I was a kid and went to the Alien experience at Disney World. Do you know what I'm talking about? I don't know if that's still around. It like breathes on your neck.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that. It's so fucking good. Also, Astrobot. Oh my god, the Pac-In Astrobot game.
Yeah.
The haptics on that are just so joyful. Oh man, just all time. Okay. End scene. Yes,
and we're back. PS5
so
controller. PS5
it just
controller.
Feels like the finish on it's nice, even aside from the functionality.
Well, you know what
everything about it is good.
You know what the grip on the back is, right? The texture on the back of the controller,
like the circle, square.
Yeah, they're all just miniature versions of the fucking symbols of the buttons on the controller. Like, it's not just pebbled. They actually went through and put little bitty versions of. God damn it, that's good. That is so
it feels
good.
Nice. It looks cool. It's a cool little detail that I didn't notice at first. Yeah. Console wise,
guys, the Wii is good though. It's a cute little rectangle, but it's also the first time that you actually had full motion control in a controller.
Okay. Again, I'm sorry, Nintendo fans. I guess my take on Nintendo is they have not made a good controller since maybe the GameCube. I almost said Super Nintendo. I'm not crazy about the GameCube controller, but it's something. I hate the experience of holding any number of Nintendo controllers.
Yeah, the Wii controller is bad, but it did do the motion controls. I will say this: the only reason I have a soft spot for the Wii controller, My wife dressed up as a Wii controller for Halloween before I met her, and it was very cute.
It's cute. I mean, it's cute, and it's you got to judge it on the motion control because it's not great to hold. And I guess I'm forgetting. I do like the Wii U gamepad. Okay, so it's not all bad, but
so do we agree the PlayStation 5 moves forward?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, we do. Now, here comes an interesting one. Xbox 360 versus Sega Saturn.
Ooh. It's easy for me.
I know you're going Saturn.
I am.
I am struggling.
All right. I'm making my argument for the Saturn.
Yeah, make your argument for the Saturn because I am very much struggling with this one.
Saturn, I think this is a rare case where I prefer the US design to the Japanese one. It's sleeker. It's got that black finish on it, which
it's also just a black square.
Okay, to me, the Sega Saturn is like, we're in the mid 90s now, right? I've sort of abandoned the idea of dropping
95
release dates on these consoles. I feel like I haven't done that in a while.
95.
I was doing it at the outset. Yes. A year later than the Japanese release. So it's hitting at that time. We've talked about a couple consoles now, which are like trying to do attitude, you know? American news. What are they into? Like, we got to get their attention. They're into cool, sleek shit. It, to me, is like, we're not shying away from the fact that we are a video games console. It's a Sega console. Sega does games. But also, like, this is Sega for the new generation.
I see what you're saying. Like, I'm looking at the two consoles side by side.
Yeah.
And of the two of them, the 360 changed a whole lot more than the Saturn did.
Coming from the Genesis, you mean?
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
Like, one of them was trying to do something wildly different, and they did it well. And that was the 360 with its rounded curves and smaller controller. And I don't know. I love this. If it was between the Genesis and the Saturn or anything else, like the SNES and the Saturn, it'd probably be Saturn. Like, it is sleek. Actually, I'd say the Genesis is better than the Saturn for me. The Genesis has that the xenomorph fucking kind of alien thing that I want from a technological device.
No, I totally agree. I don't think I guess there was a knee-jerk desire in me to argue in favor of the Sega Saturn because I've become such a Sega Saturn fan in recent years. Really, after coming to Japan and realizing like it failed in the US generally.
Yeah.
But man, what a treasure trove of wonderful experiences that are locked, largely stuck here in Japan that never made it over and are not getting localized or translated anytime soon.
Right.
I guess it's not Sega Saturn. I just wanted to give it a moment because I wanted to argue for it because I love the Sega Saturn. But I will say, if it were paired up against its counterparts in that generation, the PS1, the N64, the Saturn, that were going head to head, it's Saturn for me.
It's I would agree. I think.
Yeah. It's
I definitely like its controller better.
I love the controller. Yeah. The US one looks cooler. I think the Japanese one is a little nicer to hold. It's the 6-button Genesis controller basically. There is like a 3D one that you can sort of see it like morphing steadily into what the Dreamcast would be, but all right, yeah. Sega Saturn, I love you, but
all right, here we go.
Xbox it is.
GameCube versus PlayStation 4.
Okay. Knee jerk or like just quick one sentence. GameCube, better console. PS4, better controller.
Agreed. Which makes me lean toward the GameCube. My only issue is like the PlayStation 4's controller was between the brilliance that is the PlayStation 5 and the brilliance that is the PlayStation 3. It didn't do anything different to me.
It had the touchpad.
Yeah,
which basically
but they
just
didn't,
became the map button for most games.
They didn't use it. Yeah, they didn't really use it the way it should have been used. The GameCube,
it was rare,
was doing some wild and crazy shit.
Just quick shout out to The Last of Us Part 2, playing the guitar using the touchpad. Yeah, many developers did not utilize it, but when it was utilized, you saw like, man, this thing was so full of potential. It didn't just have to be a big map button. Anyway, GameCube is like,
The problem is its controller is absolute dog shit.
see, I wouldn't even go that. I don't like it, but I recognize there are people who do and that still swear by it and use it to this day for like Smash, Smash Brothers.
Right. It is the go-to controller for professional Smash Brothers players, from my understanding.
I like the C stick. I like the face buttons. I don't like the triggers. There's just too much like wobbly sort of give to them. They don't
Everything
feel,
on that controller feels so misplaced. I don't know. I don't.
It does kind of seem like a birth defect. Like you had like a N64 and a couple like controllers get into bed and
it's several controllers fucked and this thing came out and you're like, oh no.
Like, yeah, we shouldn't have like boned down next to that nuclear power plant.
Yeah, it's the three-eyed fish from Simpsons.
Yeah. But GameCube, great console design. It's
a cube that plays games. They did a great job.
It's a cube. It's got a big handle on the back, which actually I did use because I found myself taking it places and it was very handy. I didn't really intend for the pun, Anyway,
Jesus Christ.
Again, like 4 controllers on the front. 4 controller ports on the front, like the N64. Once again, like, hey, we want to be the central experience for like you and your friends getting together, playing multiplayer games. And it didn't really become that. It sort of like lost out to both other consoles that generation, I would say, on any number of fronts. But it was the attempt. It's the design, right? It was weird to use these proprietary discs, the smaller GameCube discs, right? So you weren't getting like your DVD functionality that you were getting elsewhere.
Yeah, it was just a system for itself. It didn't do things like...
It's a GameCube, right? It's Nintendo saying, as they often do, like, we're not trying to be the thing you put on your entertainment center to watch your DVDs and to do other tasks on. We are here. We are a games maker, and this is a machine for games.
Right.
And I appreciate that. I do.
Unlike things like the Xbox or any of the Xboxes or the PlayStations where they're like, hey, you can also download streaming apps and play Blu-rays and whatever. No, this is just simply a GameCube for GameCube games.
Yeah, I guess I'm just trying to think, like, again, just aesthetics of this console. What was it up against, right?
PlayStation 4.
Well, no, I mean, like, when it came out. We're talking, like, 2001 for both Japan and America, actually. So to have that coming after the Dreamcast, the PS2, and the Xbox are out there, right? And this is a unique console design. I like how compact it is. I like how transportable it is. I like just looking at the Xbox, this big, again, ostentatious AI-looking fucking thing. The PS2, which we haven't talked about, which I'm not a fan of aesthetically. And just like, and here is a purple cube. We're not trying to like do anything sleek. We are what we are, and we're leaning into it. And I appreciate that. I appreciate these like definitive, like, you're not going to confuse that console with anything else.
Agreed. But does it take the PlayStation 4?
I guess the controller wouldn't, but the PS4 console design is nothing spectacular to me. It's again, it's like a nondescript.
It's both matte and shiny black. Kind of
it's nice.
Monolithic
I like
thing.
It.
It's pretty. Like
I like it. I prefer it to the Xbox One for sure, but it is again like the Xbox One, sort of like this in between the iconic PS3 and PS5, and similarly the Xbox 360 and Series S and X. Say what you will about them. Well, maybe X not so much. S is iconic. You're not going to mistake that white box with the big black speaker, big black fan speaker anywhere.
The only thing for the PlayStation 4 that I think has going for it is kind of the monolithic, like it goes well on an entertainment system. Like there's nothing about it that screams, I just play video games.
Yeah, but as a gamer, I like that. I have my collection of retro consoles that I play around with often, and they take up a lot of space, and they're unwieldy sometimes, and I'm finding it harder and harder to decide what to do with them. But I would happily display that GameCube next to my Saturn and my PC Engine, and
then we go Cube. I like Cube.
I'm going Cube.
Cool.
I'm going Cube.
We go Cube.
All right.
Last one for this round, Switch versus PlayStation 2. It's got to go Switch.
Yeah, I guess so, because I just mentioned it. I don't care for the look of the PS2 console. I don't like the font. Font can be a big deal maker or deal breaker for me. I don't like the PS2 font. It was like that, hey, look, it's 2000s
I don't
now.
like the additional,
it's the future.
Like, they added some nubbins and things to the controller that I also don't like.
Yeah, it doesn't feel, again, I think the original PlayStation DualShock feels better than the PS2. It's not an improvement. So you can get that feel elsewhere, that look elsewhere. It didn't iterate there. And the console design, I don't like the lip. I don't like the overhang. I don't like the general look of it. I never did.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Wow, these brackets, Brando, I'm going to be completely honest with you. I did not expect us to get quite as passionate as we have gotten. And man, this is some deep stuff, my dude.
We thought by just limiting it to an aesthetic conversation, we would be like real quick, like, all right, which one of these consoles looks good, which one doesn't. But man, keep finding new things to say and talk about. Right?
Well, there's a lot of depth here. I'm going to be honest with you. I think this is our month. I mean, it is a month of madness, of mania. It is a month of March mania.
The console wars weren't won in a day.
True. We didn't, no one is number one seeded for this. Unlike the
Dreamcast is number one seeded in my heart, but
fair, very, very fair. So
always.
So guys, join us. Next episode. We're gonna finish up these brackets, and it's gonna get.
Yeah, we hate to leave you hanging. We do, but. To give you everything we really want to say about these things, to really let our passion be unbridled.
I mean, my passion is very unbridled.
Passion.
Very, very unbridled. So normal housekeeping stuff, as per usual. You can contact us at sourcenotfoundpod@gmail.com. Please let us know what your favorite consoles are. We'd love to hear it. Hey, maybe that'll weigh some votes on Brandon's heart for next episode. Doubtful, very doubtful. We're also available at Source Not Found Podcast on, everything. YouTube, Facebooks, Instagram, not TikTok because I'm too old for that shit. Check out Brando on Twitch at Lejunebug. Brando, spell that for the lovely sorcerer out there.
Lejeunebug. Link down in the show notes, but come by and see what I'm playing. Thankfully, it's no longer Leisure Suit Larry, so you can come.
Oh, bless.
You can, the kids. The kids can't come to this one. I do swear a little bit from time to time. It's still not family friendly, but more so than last time. It's not adult rated, at least.
I love that. I love that for all of us.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for all of our listeners. Don't forget to check your toilets for those scary Freddy Krueger hands, and check those white vans for clowns.
And since it, again, looks such like a toilet seat, don't forget to check those Atari Jaguars. Stay gaming.